You walk over to the cage in the morning, the way you do every morning, and something is wrong. Your hamster is lying on its side in the corner, curled tight, completely still. You tap the glass. Nothing. You say its name. Nothing. You lean in close, and you cannot see it breathing. Its body, when you finally reach in and touch it, is cool. Not warm and soft the way it always is. Cool and loose and heavy in your hand. And your stomach drops because every instinct you have is telling you the worst thing has happened overnight, that you went to sleep with a living animal in the room and woke up next to something else. Stop. Before you do anything, before you assume anything, there is something you need to understand about what you are looking at. Because the cold, still, lifeless thing in your hand may not be what you think it is at all. Most owners, in that moment, believe their hamster has died. It is one of the most common and most heartbreaking mistakes in the entire world of pet keeping. Because what is actually happening in a huge number of these cases is not death. It is something far stranger, far older, and far more reversible than almost any owner realizes. A survival mechanism your hamster carries inside its body that can switch on overnight and make a living animal look in every visible way, exactly like a dead one. Tonight, we are going into the strangest thing a hamster's body can do. You're going to learn why your hamster can drop its heartbeat from around 400 beats a minute to single digits. You're going to learn the exact cold room conditions in your own home that flip this switch, often without you ever noticing. And you're going to learn the simple, gentle thing you can do with your own two hands that can bring your hamster back from a state that looks like the end when it isn't. Welcome back to Hamster Minds. Subscribe before you go, because this is the one piece of knowledge that on the wrong winter morning could be the difference between panic and a hamster that wakes up in your hands an hour later. It happens silently, overnight, in homes that feel perfectly normal to the people living in them. And once you understand it, you will never look at a cold, still hamster the same way again. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover is the part most owners get backwards entirely. The moment that looks like the worst thing that could happen is, in the right hands, something you can undo. Number 1. The emergency switch hidden inside your hamster. Here is the fact that changes everything. Your hamster is what biologists call a facultative hibernator. Some animals, like ground squirrels and certain bears, are obligate hibernators. They shut down every winter on a fixed internal schedule, no matter what. Your hamster is different. It does not hibernate on a calendar. It hibernates on demand, only when conditions turn against it, in a state scientists call torpor, sometimes described as permissive or emergency hibernation. Think of it as a switch rather than a season. When your hamster's body detects that survival has suddenly become difficult, too cold, too dark, not enough food, it can make a deliberate, controlled decision to power down. Not to sleep, to shut down. Its metabolism collapses. Its body temperature, normally somewhere around 98 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, begins to fall toward the temperature of the room around it. Its systems drop into a kind of biological standby, burning the absolute minimum fuel required to stay alive. And here is what most owners never understand. This is not a peaceful, healthy, natural event for a pet hamster. In the wild, in the freezing burrows of the steppe, this mechanism is a last-ditch survival tool. But a domestic hamster in a warm home should almost never need it. When a pet hamster goes into torpor, it is a sign that something in its environment pushed it to the edge, and the body did the only thing it knows how to do to survive the cold. The switch you never knew existed got flipped while you were asleep. Number 2. Why it looks exactly like death. This is the part that fools almost everyone, and once you understand the numbers, you will understand why. Start with the heart. A healthy, active hamster's heart races at somewhere between 200 and 500 beats a minute, often around 400. It is one of the fastest heartbeats of any animal you will ever hold. Now, in deep torpor, that same heart can slow to single digits. Some sources describe it dropping as low as 5 to 10 beats a minute. Pause on that. A heart that normally beats 400 times a minute, beating perhaps 5 times instead. If you put your fingers to its chest, you could wait several agonizing seconds between beats, certain there was nothing there at all. Then the breathing. A normal hamster breathes somewhere between 50 and 135 times a minute, a quick, almost invisible flutter. In torpor, that can collapse to 1 or 2 breaths a minute. 1 or 2. You can watch a hamster in torpor for 30 full seconds and not see its sides move even once and conclude, reasonably, that it is not breathing at all. And then the temperature. Its warm little body cools toward the temperature of the room, which is why it feels cold and loose and wrong in your hand. Heart almost stopped. Breath almost gone. Body cold. To every sense you have, the animal is dead. This is exactly why torpor is so often mistaken for death, and exactly why so many hamsters in torpor have been mourned, and sometimes even buried, while they were still alive. That is the hard truth at the center of this video, and it is precisely the thing this knowledge can prevent. Number 3. The cold corner in your home you never check. So what flips the switch? The answer is hiding in your own house, often in a spot you have never thought about. The single biggest trigger is cold. Hamsters are most comfortable in a room that stays consistently between about 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The well-known danger threshold for torpor is when temperatures fall toward 41 degrees Fahrenheit, around 5 degrees Celsius. But the risk starts climbing well before that, once a room dips below roughly 59 degrees and stays there. And here is the catch most owners miss. It is not the temperature of your house that matters. It is the temperature of the exact spot where the cage sits. A cage against an exterior wall, under a window, near a drafty door, beside a garage, or in the path of an air vent can be many degrees colder than the room your thermostat is measuring. The temperature you feel standing in your warm living room is not the temperature your hamster experiences 6 inches from a single-pane window at 3 in the morning, when the heating is clicked off and the cold is pressing in through the glass. Damp bedding makes it worse, because moisture pulls heat out of the body faster. Cold is the main trigger, but it rarely acts alone. 2 other factors stack on top of it. The first is daylight, specifically short daylight. When a hamster experiences fewer than around 12 hours of light a day, its body starts reading the signal as deep winter, the season when survival gets hard. The second is food and water. If your hamster perceives that resources are running short, that perception feeds the same conclusion. Cold room, short dark days, scarce-seeming food. To your hamster's ancient instincts, those 3 signals together spell one thing. Winter is here, and it is time to shut down to survive it. There's something worth sitting within that. The cage you glance at on a cold night, still and quiet in its corner, looks like a small, safe world you have completely under control. But your hamster's body is reading that corner with senses far older than the house it sits in. It is measuring the chill seeping off the wall, counting the shrinking hours of winter light, weighing its own reserves, and somewhere in the dark on the wrong night, it can make a decision you never authorized and never saw, to let go of its own warmth, slow its own heart, and disappear into a state that looks like death in order to cheat it. Number 4. How to tell torpor from the real thing, with your own hands. This is the section to remember, because one day it may be the only thing standing between panic and a calm, correct response. If you find your hamster cold and motionless, do not assume the worst, and do not assume it is fine. Check gently in this order. First, look for breath you cannot see at normal speed. Hold a small mirror, a cold metal spoon, or even your glasses just in front of its nose for a minute or 2. If it is alive and in torpor, you may see the faintest fog appear and fade as it exhales once slowly. Second, watch the whiskers and paws. Stroke it very softly and look for the smallest whisker twitch. Gently draw out one tiny paw and watch for a slow stretch as it pulls back. These micro-movements are the body quietly signaling that someone is still home. There is one important way to read the situation. A hamster in torpor will usually feel cool and floppy and loose. A hamster that is truly past will, over time, feel cold and stiff. And the room itself is a clue. If the space has stayed reliably warm, above about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and a hamster is still cold and rigid, that, sadly, points away from torpor. But if the room was cold, and now you know how cold a corner can secretly be, then a loose, cool, barely breathing hamster is very likely in torpor and waiting for one thing from you: warmth. Now, the part that matters most, and the part people get dangerously wrong in their panic. You warm a hamster in torpor slowly. Cup it gently in your bare hands and let your own body heat soak into it. Tuck it against your chest, or wrap it in a cloth that is only slightly warm, never hot. Move the cage away from the draft into a calm, warm room and let the temperature rise gradually toward the low 70s. What you must not do is rush it. No heating pads pressed against a limp animal, no hot water bottles directly against the body, no holding it up to a heater. Sudden, intense heat on a hamster that cannot move away can burn it and can shock a system that is barely ticking over. Slow and steady is what brings them back. And throughout all of it, this is not optional. You're calling your vet because torpor is genuinely dangerous, dehydration and hypothermia follow it fast, and a cold, still, weak hamster always deserves a professional eye, not a guess. Number 5. The ancient program living in a pet store animal. Here is the part most owners have completely backwards, and the most extraordinary thing of all. We tend to think of our hamsters as soft, fragile, slightly helpless little creatures, animals that need us for everything, that could never survive a single night in the wild. And in the warmth and safety of your home, that is mostly true. But torpor is the moment the mask slips and you see what is really inside that tiny body. Because this same mechanism, this controlled collapse of heartbeat and breath and temperature, is the survival program of an animal whose ancestors endured brutal cold in burrows on open ground, where a single freezing night could end everything. Your hamster did not learn torpor. It did not develop it from being a pet. It was born carrying a deep winter survival tool millions of years older than the species' first day in a cage. That is the awe of it. The little animal running on your wheel, stuffing its cheeks, sleeping in a pile of fluff, carries inside it the same biology that let its wild ancestors gamble their entire metabolism against the cold and wind. And here's the part that turns the whole story around. In the wild, an animal that drops into torpor in a freezing burrow may simply not have enough left to climb back out. Torpor is brutally hard on the body, and many do not survive it. But your hamster is not in a freezing burrow. Your hamster is in your home, within reach of your hands. The very thing that looks like the worst possible morning, cold, still, seemingly gone, is in your hands, often something you can reverse. You could be the warmth its ancestors never had. The single beat of a heart slowed almost to nothing can, with patient warming, climb back to 400 beats a minute, and a hamster you were certain had left you can stir and stretch and look up at you as if nothing happened at all. So the next time you find your hamster lying cold and still in the corner, before fear takes over, remember what you are actually looking at. Not necessarily an ending. Possibly an ancient survival program, switched on in the dark by a cold corner you never thought to check. A body that powered itself down to the edge of life to outlast a winter that was never even real. And remember that the warmth it is waiting for on that worst of mornings can come from your own two hands. Tell me in the comments, has your hamster ever frightened you by going cold and still? And how did it turn out? Your story might be the exact thing another owner needs to read on a scary morning. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.